we're talking about, specifically movies, they're always remaking
Motion
stuff.
detected at the front door.
Ooh,
Sorry about that. I tried to mute it
that's okay.
before.
That's all right. That's all right. If you got to check it, you can check it because
Oh
we're
no, it's
recording
probably just a
anyways.
package delivery.
Oh, okay. Um, Hopefully it's not like a home invasion thing going on, man. Because I'm just like, no, I'm just joking. I'm just playing, man. Welcome to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're gonna have a very special episode with a friend and an amazing content creator that I'm so happy to be able to sit down and talk with, because we don't always get a chance to kind of do this type of thing. And sometimes you just want a chance to ask people questions. So today I have Lady Shasha with me. What's going on?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, with this series that we're doing here, I wanted a chance to talk with other content creators, and especially content creators that have been doing this for a while. And just to start off right off the bat, and I know I didn't say this to you before we started recording, but I mean, you're one of the content creators for me when I first started out myself. It was just so cool to see you and to see your content, and just to get a sense of, wow, this is how you do things, this is how you convey your messages and so forth. Because I really, and I think I said that to you once a long time ago, on a comment, and I was probably like, fanboying out and that type of thing. But I'm pretty sure I said to you, that obviously I enjoy your content so much, but just your personality and everything. So for me personally, I've always looked to you for inspiration, even if you didn't know that. So this is
Wow,
really cool.
that means a lot to me. Like seriously, because there are a lot of times where I doubt myself or whether what I'm doing is good enough or where I can. I'm always looking for ways I can improve. So
Mm.
having positive feedback really, really helps me.
Oh, well, well, I think positive feedback is always a good thing, or any feedback, but definitely
Hmm.
positive feedback is great. And I think as YouTubers, which is where I knew this conversation might go, and I'm glad. But I think as YouTubers, we get stuck in our own little
Hmm.
bubble, you know, and you're not always sure, is your message, connecting with an audience? Because ultimately, that's why we do this thing, is to connect with people, connect with an audience, and create, friendships and all that type of stuff. But for you, and some of these people that are watching this video, they may or may not know this, but can you give us a sense of what started you as a YouTuber, and how things were when you first started?
I think that the impetus was just wanting to find other people to talk to about the movies that I was watching because
Mm,
even though I do also cover mainstream horror movies, I mostly watch horror movies that kind of fly under the radar.
mm-hmm.
So there was a movie that came. I remember I got to tell this story. And shout out to my middle sister because she's the one that put me onto it because she said, "Hey, didn't you say you liked Hot Tension?" And I was like, "Yeah, I like that." And I liked there was another French film that I talked to her about. She was like, "You have to check out this movie called Martyrs." And that's all she told me
Ooh.
about it.
Ooh. I
And I
like that.
watched it, said to myself, "I have to talk to somebody about this." But
Right?
most of the people that I was around, like at work, at school, in my general life, didn't watch those type of movies.
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't talk to them about it. And I was like, I'm gonna make a YouTube video talking about this film because it is an experience. And then from
Mm.
there I just started talking about more films that I enjoyed and then some that I didn't so much enjoy. And then I
Mm.
noticed at the time that I started there weren't a whole lot of black female uh YouTubers that were talking about horror. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot more now, which is awesome to see. But I
Mm-hmm.
found myself when I would go on YouTube and look for horror content, it was largely white and male, which there's I have no problem with white and male people, but sometimes when you're speaking from only one perspective, you miss a few things
Mm-hmm.
that people from other perspectives can pick up on. And since
Right.
then, like I said, I'm seeing more people of color. I'm seeing more LGBT creators that open my eyes to different things that I wouldn't have noticed as a straight person. So
Hmm.
I'm glad to see this space really growing.
Yeah, man. That's a great point because, when you just have that one perspective
Hmm.
that you're seeing these things through, there's a lot that could fly over your head, man. I mean, I can't tell you how many times people have talked to me about movies, whether it's like, I don't know, Tales from the Hood or
Hmm.
Get Out or Candyman or even Night of the Living Dead talking about Dwayne Jones and his portrayal as Ben,
Hmm.
and they'll say something and then I'll say something and it's, oh, I never really thought of it that way. That's interesting. And then of
Hmm.
course then the conversation can be had. So I really appreciate you saying that because it's so true. It is
Hmm.
so true, man. And it's great to see, you know, more diversity and different perspectives being brought and being horror fans. I'm all for it.
Hmm.
Absolutely all for it, man. Wow, cool. So now, so with your channel and one thing, and you mentioned things like martyrs and and high tension and stuff like
Yeah.
that. What about those movies, if there is anything, what about those movies really connects with you? I mean, what do you like about those types of movies? Because I'll tell you what, man, not only are they are great movies, in
Hmm.
my opinion too, but I know because we've talked about actually we just talked about high tension like I don't know about a month ago, and there were so many people that were like, "Wow, this is really intense," and
Hmm.
"Oh my gosh, I don't know if I can handle this," and and we talked about Inside as well. So
Hmm. Oh,
what
that's a
what
great one.
Right? It's
Yeah.
that's a crazy ass movie, man.
Hmm.
I'm telling you, when I first saw that, Coriander turned me onto that one because it just flew over my head. She's like, "Yeah, you gotta check it out," and I was like, "All right, well, we gotta talk about it." And that film messed me up, man.
Hmm.
It really messed me up. But what about those movies? Um, do you enjoy so much?
I think a lot of it is that they remind me of some of the movies I grew up on because,
Hmm.
I lived in a small town in Connecticut. That's where I grew up, and we had three video stores and I think three or four public libraries that also loaned out VHS tapes.
Mm.
But the mom and pop video stores that weren't Blockbuster would have these wild movies. Like I remember the first time I even thought of New Zealand as a place, like other than outside of school, was seeing Peter Jackson's Bad Taste. I was like,
Yes.
this is amazing. And then we it used to be me, my sister, and my cousin would walk to the video store,
Hmm.
and we would pick up movies. Like we would go just based on the cover.
Yep.
You're old enough to remember VHS culture. It's similar to Tubi culture. A lot of people, you pick a Tubi movie based on what is the description and the poster looks like.
Yep.
But we discovered that Dead Alive,
Mm.
Pieces, Curtains, like those movies were very extreme in
Hmm.
but in great ways. With the French film, they're a little bit darker in their extremity. There isn't much comedy in it, or if
Hmm.
any at all. But
Right.
I liked I liked the feeling of seeing the envelope being pushed.
Definitely, definitely. And you get a lot of that, man. I mean, when you talk about I saw High Tension in the theater
Oh
uh
wow, that's
four
good.
times. Four times because it was just that it
Mhm.
was just I loved it. I actually took two friends to it on two separate occasions. So I saw it twice by myself and two times
Mhm.
with friends. But um yeah, some of the stuff that they do with that envelope, they really do push it, and it's
Mhm.
like it does remind me of back in the day with the video stores and stuff like that. Some of the things that they were doing, especially you mentioned Pieces. That's a
Mhm.
great example. Just some of the shit that they were doing, man. It was like
Mhm.
what, and of course, especially back then with the practical
Mhm.
effects and stuff like that. Man, I can't get enough of that stuff. It's just
Yeah.
so cool,
Or
and it's
I have
great.
a shirt on today. It's the Japanese rendition of Sleepaway Camp.
Nice,
And the ending of
nice.
that, like that, I'd never been so shocked as a kid. Like, wow. And
Oh
I loved it.
man, man, I'm telling you, you know, and we came up, around the same time too. I think back then. and I know it sounds so cliche, but I think back then, and I'm speaking mostly horror. I mean, I love
Mhm.
other stuff too. I love action and all that shit too.
Mhm.
But speaking just on horror, it was so special back
Mhm.
then because it seemed like to me, and let me know what you think, but it seemed like to me that filmmakers just had more free reign to
Yes, they
just
did.
use their imagination and create, push the envelope if they want to. And there was just so much variety,
Mhm.
so much variety. And I don't think we have, I mean, we have it a little bit, but I don't think we have it at the same level that we had back in, the 80s and the 90s and stuff like that, man.
Yeah.
Which is
I
too
think
bad.
there's an opportunity for it to come back
Hmm.
because you have platforms like Tubi and Amazon that allow independent film directors to self-publish to them. I
Mm-hmm.
think that could come back, but I think what's missing and what I'm seeing of what's happening is there's like a disconnect. You have one group of people over here who are great cinematographers.
Hmm.
They're not the best writers and directors, but they're doing written and directed bys. Then you have another group of people who are great special effects techs, not great writers, but they're
Hmm.
doing directed and written by. And it's
Good
like
point.
sometimes you guys got to work together as a everyone can't be writer, director, cinematographer, special effects tech. You got to
Right.
collectivize. You got to find the
Mm.
right person for the right job, and then you'll really have something special.
That's a good point. Yeah. Well, I would love not only for those creatives to kind of find the right way to do these things, like you said. If you're good at one thing, don't try to do three other things. And
Hmm.
collaborate with someone else that can do that other thing very well. That
Hmm.
would be cool if that happens. But like you said, whether it's Tubi or Amazon or whatever, I would really love for the genre to really open
Yes.
up like it did, like it was back in the day, man. Because I think for this generation, and not to sound all old about it or whatever, but I think that their idea of horror is a lot more narrow,
Hmm.
and I see that even in comments and live streams where I'll be talking about, a movie like let's say Pieces. I mean, and of
Hmm.
course there's tons more other examples, but I'll talk about Pieces and whatever, and they're like, oh man, wow, they did that. They could do that back then. They did that back then, or I never heard of that movie, or this or that. And so I just think that when I was growing up, going to a video store was like going to Disney World, man.
Hmm.
It it really
It was.
was.
You're goddamn right.
Especially if they have that the dollar deals where it was like 5 movies for 5 days for $5. That
Yes.
was like the best deal.
Yes, man. Oh my God. I mean, and it was funny because my mother, first of all, my parents were just so amazing because they really got me and my brother into
Mhm,
movies. And, I was old enough at the time that once I started to become a horror fan, that's where I went. I went to the horror
yes.
section, man.
Mhm,
My brother's like 4 years younger than me, so he was still, hanging out in the Disney section or whatever. But he
mhm,
he finally came around. But going to that horror section, man, and like you said, you look at the VHS cover and the poster art might grab you, or the title. Like they had great
mhm.
titles back then too,
Yes.
man. You know, and some of them were kind of vague, like you said, curtains. Like, well, what the hell is that about?
Mhm,
But it makes me question.
mhm.
And it was so much fun, man. Like you said, and when they have those little deals and stuff like that, it was like you really like parents had it good back then, man. Because my
Yes.
mom, she would use that on us. She'd be
Mhm,
like, "Look, y'all better behave, or when we go to the video store, you can't get anything. Or instead of getting two movies, you only get one." And we'd be like,
mhm,
"Oh no, 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 no!" It's just funny, man. I miss Blockbuster and all the mom and pop stores. I really do,
mhm.
man. I still love those places.
What's funny is my mother used to let us kind of independently pick the movies until one movie
Uh
that I
oh.
rented that she said, "Okay, from now on, I have to inspect which movies you pick up." And the movie the movie was Black Devil Doll from Hell.
Oh my
I picked
God,
that up.
Nick.
She's like, "Okay, it's probably gonna be like Child's Play, just a black version of Child's Play." But then the scene when the doll assaults the lady, but it's in an intimate way.
Yeah.
She hit stop and took it out of the VCR. And mind you, I'm like 14 at this point, so I'm like, I can watch this. But my younger
Right.
sister was there, and she's like, "Your
Right.
sister can't watch this,"
Oh my god, that is no. Wait a minute, that's hilarious. No, let me. I didn't expect that, man. So, so y'all were watching the movie, and then your mom walked in.
Hmm.
Oh my god, man. That's hilarious. Oh man, so then she had to inspect. But I was lucky, man, because my mom didn't inspect the movies I got, and
Hmm.
I always told my brother because I let my brother watch movies with me, especially as he got older. But I would always tell him like, don't say nothing about this movie. Don't mess this thing up. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Because we would either we were really lucky because we had a VCR and then
Hmm.
a DVD player in my bedroom, but we also had the basement, which was like my dad's hangout spot.
Hmm.
He had the nice TV and the
Yeah.
good setup. So when we were really lucky, we'd go down the basement and watch, movies and stuff like that. But my mother never inspected them. Never. I
Hmm.
mean, and we didn't watch anything super bad.
Hmm.
But it's so funny,
Probably,
man.
probably the worst thing we watched, and it's not my fault. It's my brother's fault. I have an older brother that
Mhm.
he would have been, he probably would have been 17, and
Uh-huh.
he's the one that got me into anime because he used to buy mangas. He worked at a hobby shop,
Mhm.
and so through him is where I saw Akira and a lot of anime. The
Mhm.
Dirty Pair. I don't know if you remember them. Project
Yes.
Echo. But the
Yes.
worst thing that, I'm just going through my brother's VHS tapes, and I'm
Mhm.
like, oh, what is this? And it's it was Yorosaki Doji, Legend of the Overfiend. And I was like, this is
Oh!
totally different. This
Oh
is not the
my
same.
god. Yes. Bro, I haven't seen that in a long time. I remember
Hmm.
one of my buddies, he used to get a lot of bootleg things, you know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? And like the first time I think the first anime I ever saw as a kid was Fist of the North Star. And he had the Japanese. I mean, like we didn't know what they were saying. He
Hmm.
had the Japanese copy of it, which was still really cool. But the great thing about those is that you still understood the story.
Yes.
Like years later, they released the English dub of Fist of the North Star, and when I watched it, it was like, yeah, that's exactly what I thought was happening. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So it's funny how, as kids, a lot of us experienced that, but the Overfiend, man. Oh my God. I remember
Yeah.
when my buddy, this was another friend of mine that we were all big into anime and horror and stuff like that as kids, and he had a copy of it. And he told me, he said, just make sure when you watch this, no one is around and can hear it. And I was like,
Hmm.
oh, okay. And he was right. He was right.
Yep.
That's funny. Oh
What
my God.
What's also interesting about, like, specifically Generation X is that
Mhm.
we kind of def- um grew up with anime in a way anyways, because I found out that there was a strike, like a cartoonist strike in the early 80s, and that's
Ooh,
why we got stuff like Robotech and what's it, Voltron. Those were
yeah.
Japanese. They just overdubbed it in English, but those were animes.
Yeah, yeah. I loved Robotech, man. That was, oh man. We had look, and I know, I know we were talking about horror, but we had some good stuff as kids because
Hmm.
we had cool anime or cartoons. We
Hmm.
had good movies, and not just in horror. We had good TV shows. Like TV was actually entertaining, and you had a lot to pick from. We had great music. I mean, it
Yeah.
was, man, I'm telling you, and I always say that to some of the younger people, or this generation coming up.
Hmm.
And it does sound cliche, but I'm serious. We really had some great stuff. And it's true because there's so much. I mean, if we're talking about, specifically movies, they're always remaking
Motion
stuff.
detected at the front door.
Ooh,
Sorry about that. I tried to mute it
that's okay.
before.
That's all right. That's all right. If you got to check it, you can check it because
Oh
we're
no, it's
recording
probably just a
anyways.
package delivery.
Oh, okay. Um, Hopefully it's not like a home invasion thing going on, man, because I'm just like, no, I'm just joking. I'm just playing, man. But
No, actually,
um,
I think the thing that stops that from happening down here, because I'm in Florida, is that we have cats, and you would be so surprised how many people are afraid of a cat.
are you for real?
Yes, we've had people call on the phone, and it's like, hello, and it's like, oh, I'm trying to deliver, your food. It might be like from Uber Eats, but there's a cat in front of your door, and I'm afraid to walk up, and I've never experienced so many people
What?
being afraid of cats.
That's
So,
crazy. Oh my God. Wow. That's crazy stuff, man. I love cats.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, but yeah, we had so much cool stuff, and I think that even in today's generation, whatever it is as far as media is concerned, you see people remaking stuff. If we're talking about
Yeah.
movies, there's always a remake, or it's inspired by,
Mhm.
or a reboot, or whatever. I mean, we still have horror franchises that have been around longer than
Mhm.
we've been alive, and it's crazy. But I think it's because there were special things going on back then,
Mhm.
and it lives on today.
Yeah, there was more leeway for new ideas.
Yeah.
Now it seems like they only want proven IPs. They don't want to take the risk on anything new.
Right,
Um,
right.
One thing I do notice about when we were coming up, as far as remakes were, they did something very different. The remakes now, they seem to want to remake iconic movies. They want to do Nightmare on Elm Street. They want to do Halloween. They want to, I don't know whether the next Exorcist is going to be a remake or a reboot.
Right,
But
right.
with the remakes we had, when John Carpenter did The Thing, he took a movie that was kind of schlocky, not so good, from the 60s, remade it. The Blob, again,
Mhm.
schlocky, not so good. So if you took a movie, like, let's say, I don't know, like 976 Evil, where it's okay, but there could be improvements made. Do
Right, right.
that. Don't do The Exorcist. Like,
Yeah,
there's
right?
plenty of movies from the 80s and 90s that you can improve upon. You don't have to take the classics. It's just weird that you're trying to do that.
That is so true, man. And you're right, because Carpenter loved The Thing
Hmm.
from Another World. I mean, that was a love of his. And when he approached his movie, he went in a different direction. Like, those two
Hmm.
movies are very different from each other. Same thing with The Blob. Same
Hmm.
thing with The Fly. David
Yes.
Cronenberg, when he did The Fly. I mean, it's very different than the old school Fly movie. And I
Hmm.
love the old school movie too, but David Cronenberg, he's like, I'm going to take you guys on a different type of trip,
Hmm.
and he was very successful at it. But I agree. If you have a movie like 976 Evil, I haven't seen that in so long.
I
Oh
haven't
my
either. I
God.
just That's the first thing I could think of that I of a movie that I wouldn't rewatch. So I figured, well, maybe it's not so good.
Right, right. But yeah, you could remake something like that because there's still room for it to be improved upon. But if you have
Hmm.
something like The Exorcist, and I'm glad you mentioned that, but The Exorcist, I just don't see how you can do anything else with it. You know what
Hmm.
I'm saying? To really make it worth it, because that movie was such a groundbreaking movie because of its material, but also the time that it came out.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? That was a big part of its charm. Is like people had
Yeah.
never seen that before. You
Yeah,
know?
and it's not even going to be received the same because there's so
Yeah.
many derivative works. It's not going like it's wild. Like when I listen to younger people and they're like, "The Exorcist isn't scary," and it's like, well, no, it's not scary to you because you've seen all the tropes already a million
Mm-hmm.
times. But
Mm-hmm.
back then, when it first came out, nobody saw anything like that before, so it's
Mm-hmm.
a different experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Is The Exorcist, in your opinion, is it still effective? Is it a favorite of yours? Is it scary to you, or what?
To me, yes, I
Mhm.
think it's very effective, especially if you take it in as it's meant to be taken in. If you
Mhm.
put your phone down
Yes.
and you watch it, and if you have surround sound, the score, the sound design is amazing. The story that's
Mhm.
being told is great. But
Yeah.
like, just seeing even the whole process of her thinking, okay, maybe this is a medical issue, and taking Reagan to the doctor and then taking her to the psychiatrist. Like, these are things that makes total sense why she did these things.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
the whole the demon playing with Father Karras's guilt over his mother.
Mhm. Yeah. No, I totally agree. When we did the scariest moments, event, and you picked The Exorcist, when you did that, I was like, God, that was one of three
Mm.
that I thought to myself. But of course, I was like, I wanted you guys to pick the one that you guys wanted, and that was a great pick, and I think it's still so effective. And I agree. People that say that it's not scary, number one, they're desensitized, but number
Hmm.
two, and probably more important, is that they've seen these things done, usually in a much lesser successful way,
Hmm.
and so it doesn't move them at all. But
Yeah.
for me, when I first saw it as a kid, freaking, I crapped in my pants, man.
Oh yeah.
And you know,
I
because
couldn't
these,
sleep, and I saw
th-
the edited version on TV.
oh, wow. All
I didn't
right.
know about the crucifix scene until years later when I actually
Oh,
saw the unedited version.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and also, and I think it does speak to all of us, you know, the subgenre or the type of horror movie it is. Like those type of horror movies, they definitely speak to me, man, because you
Hmm.
know, I'm like, once you start talking about faith and religion and stuff, it's like, woo, this is getting
Yeah.
kind of scary. And that's a great movie where it really plays on a lot of angles. And I'm still curious to see what they're gonna do with this Exorcist Believer. It's called The Exorcist
Hmm.
Believer or something like that, and that's coming out in October, I
September,
believe.
October. Yeah.
September, October. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Are you gonna go see it?
I don't know. I have to wait to see whether I haven't even seen post artwork for it yet, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna wait to see if there at least a still image or something. And
Mm-hmm.
I need to look up who's working on it, because there was
Mm-hmm.
a Exorcist TV show that it wasn't too bad, because it more so focused on the priests and them having to go to different places
Yeah.
and deal with these different possessed people. But the
Yeah.
one thing that a lot of modern possession movies skip over, and I don't know whether it's due to censorship or they're just afraid to go there, making the demon talk like a demon. That's one of the things
Mm.
that's the freakiest thing about The Exorcist, is this 12-year-old child saying the most foul stuff.
Yes.
Like the first time,
Yes.
do you curse on your channel? I don't want to curse if you don't curse on
Oh,
your channel.
you can if you
Oh,
want. Yeah.
the first time when Reagan tells Father Karras that your mother sucks cocks in hell, I was like, whoa. They don't do that.
They don't.
It's a demon. A demon is gonna say some foul stuff.
Right, 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 right. Yeah, I mean, and because of the fact, especially in The Exorcist, because of the fact that that happens so far into the movie, one, it's smart, but
Hmm.
two, you got to have the patience. Like you said, you got to put your phone down and spend time with this character and care
Hmm.
about her as a little child and this
Hmm.
mother have a loving relationship. Um, and then when she makes that turn, it's shocking.
Hmm.
It hits home because you care about her and you don't want to see her like this, you know. And that's the hallmark of any great horror film, and also great characters in horror movies, is that you have to have some type of character development so you can give a shit about the
Hmm.
issues that they're dealing with. And
Yes.
Reagan's a great example of that, you know. Like movies now, movies today would have had her going through the possession probably within the first 20 minutes,
Hmm.
easily. You know what I mean? But with William Freakin, he took his time. You know,
Hmm.
he took his time before you even saw her talking, you know, like the demon. So it's a great movie. But I'm nervous about this new movie. Um, I am gonna go see it, you know, because I gotta talk about it. You know, there are a lot of people that are like, this is gonna be the worst thing of
Hmm.
all time. There's never gonna be a bigger failure than this. You know, I'm not thinking like that, you know, because I don't know yet. I haven't seen it. I do think that it's a really tall order for
Hmm.
it to be, you know, a really good movie. Um, but I'm curious to see what they're gonna do. Because to me, I guess what I'm saying is, to me, any smart person has to sit back and think, can I do a good Exorcist movie? You know, standing up to the original. You know, anyone who's got any brains has to be thinking about that issue. And so obviously they think they can. So
My first thought was, did you learn nothing from the Poltergeist remake?
oh, that's true.
That was
That's true.
absolutely abysmal.
That's true. Oh my God, that's a great point. Yeah, man, that movie. Oh man,
In
yeah,
Poltergeist, when I did my review of it, I talked about how it introduced the characters in such a creative way. The,
yes.
the characters are introduced by the dog walking around the house. You see the
Mm-hmm.
father sleep in a chair in front of the TV, like a lot of fathers end up doing,
Yep.
and you see the dog go upstairs, and you see the teenage girl. I think she's asleep by her potato chips or something. I think she was on phone and fell asleep on the phone with the potato chips, and
Mm-hmm.
the dog goes into the children's room. Like you're introducing these characters and showing them in their element, and you just get it without
Right.
a whole
Right.
lot of what I call Tyler Perry dialogue. We're all successful attorneys in Atlanta. It's like,
Right.
or my least favorite, what I call cheap writing, is when they say, you know, you're my sister, you know, you're my brother. I'm like, no one
Oh
says that.
man,
No,
yes,
you just,
yes. Good point. It's a good point, man. Like sometimes dialogue could be so cringy, and it's like,
mm-hmm,
come on, guys. Again, it it doesn't seem natural. That's part of
mm-hmm,
it too. It just doesn't seem natural. It just seems like it's something that is said because they think it's something that needs to be said. Like
mm-hmm,
it's the in thing or something. Whereas, with a lot of movies back in the day, I don't know, they just seem normal.
yeah,
I mean, it just seemed like it was normal conversation for the most part. Not
mm-hmm,
every movie, but a lot of the great ones. Like you mentioned with Poltergeist and the way that the characters were introduced. I'll tell you what, man, that family seemed about as normal of a family
mm-hmm,
as you could imagine. They literally looked like a family that could have been on one of my favorite TV shows growing up. They just had that normalcy about them. They were funny. They messed with each other.
mm-hmm,
The siblings argued, and the mother is trying to keep things together, and the father's got to go to work. All that different type of stuff, and it's
mm-hmm,
done in a way where you don't even see the actors. You just see them as characters. But yeah, when you got characters that are just really, you can connect with them and they just look like normal everyday people. That's such an important thing, because like when they
mm-hmm,
started going through stuff in that movie, like that, Poltergeist isn't a super scary movie, but when I was a kid, it did creep me out
oh
because I
yeah,
cared so much about the family. That's what
mm-hmm,
really made it. That's what hit home for me, is that I really loved this family so much. And yeah, when they decided to do that remake, I was just like, come on, man. You know?
I I think the other part of it that made it stand out was the introduction of the neighborhood. When the guy's
Mm,
riding on a bicycle, he's got the beer, and you see the kids outside with the remote control car, and you see the neighborhood. And
yes.
I think prior to Poltergeist, a lot of haunted house movies were in a creepy old mansion. But with
Yeah.
Poltergeist, this is a brand new neighborhood. All these houses are new. So
Hmm.
that's what makes it stand to me, that's what makes it stand out, because this is
Yeah.
a new house.
Yeah. It was new house. It was sunny.
Mhm.
You got this neighbor. The guys are trying to watch the football game. I loved it when
Mhm.
they're having the remote control war and stuff like that. And it's like, it's little moments like that that are done so well that it's just great for the character development.
Mhm.
It really is. Now we've spent time talking about some really great old school movies and stuff, but as far as modern movies, like let's say like within the last whatever 10, 15 years or whatever, what are some horror movies that either stand out to you or that are favorites of yours, or kind of like what we're saying with Poltergeist? Yeah, I do think there are some movies in the last decade or so that have had characters that are
Mhm.
presented in a good way. What are some examples that are some of your favorites?
Let me think. There's one movie that I have a mixed opinion on.
Hmm.
Well, movie series now because it's a sequel, and that's Terrifier. I think they had an
Ooh.
amazing character design with Art the Clown, and the
Hmm.
gore is what I like. I love that. Where
Hmm.
the Terrifier movies fall short is the victims. Like nobody, the first Terrifier movie, I couldn't tell those women apart. I didn't even know there was three of them until like I rewatched it with somebody.
Yeah.
Terrifier 2 was better, but then they tacked on this whole 20-minute segment on the end with the girl with the sword, and I was like, that's this. Why did you do that?
Hmm. Hmm.
And if you want your I feel like in order for a slasher villain to be iconic, their nemesis or their final girl needs to be equally iconic. Like we remember
Mm.
Nancy, we remember Laurie Strode, we remember Kirsty from Hellraiser. I can't tell you what those ladies' names are, the girl's name is in any Terrifier movie. And I think they
Mm.
just need to write the characters a little bit more so that we give half a damn about them. Like,
Mm. That's interesting take,
and then you,
man. I
yeah.
Yeah, well, I agree with that too. Well, for the first Terrifier movie, definitely, because I think that although the twist of it was the girl that we thought was the final girl
Hmm.
wasn't, and then of
Hmm.
course the girl that quote unquote survived was the one that got disfigured that we saw glimpses of in the beginning of the movie. Like that was kind of a cool twist, but I agree. Like I wanted to latch on to a character and really, ride with them, so to speak,
Hmm.
and yeah, I couldn't really do that. Now in Terrifier 2, I do think that it was a good decision for Damien the way he directed it, with the character of Sienna. We spent time with her,
Yeah,
and her
it was
and her
definitely better.
yeah, so that was better, and her little brother. But I do agree. Once we got into the supernatural side of it, or I should say, when we leaned heavily
Mm-hmm.
into the supernatural side of it, that's when it was kind of like, hmm, because although in the original, at the end, we saw glimpses of the supernatural, the whole movie up to that, there was no supernatural, angle to the movie.
Mm-hmm.
At least not that I remember of. I just thought it was a dude dressed up as a clown, and he was
Mm-hmm.
he was killing people. But at the end, obviously, when he, um, spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen Terrifier, but when he comes back from the dead, it's like, oh shit, he's supernatural.
Mm-hmm.
But with Terrifier 2, I do think that that's something that's divided the audiences a little bit, is that supernatural angle. Part of me really liked it. I do think they kind of leaned too heavy into it. Supposedly, Damien Leone, who directed it, he kind of likened it to Dream Warriors. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? As far as the vibe he was trying to aim for. And I mean, obviously, Dream Warriors isn't a bad movie to be inspired by. But supposedly for Terrifier 3, which is,
Mm-hmm.
greenlit, and they're working on, supposedly for Terrifier 3, he's going to lean back into the darker roots, the more grounded roots, like in the first one.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, man. It's interesting. I mean, I am glad we've got art, you know,
Yes.
as a horror villain, because it's nice to have some new blood, no
Mm-hmm.
pun intended, and there is a lot of blood in
Yeah.
these movies, man. And he said supposedly for 3, he's gonna top what he's done in 1 and 2, and I'm like, what else
Oh,
can you do to a person?
I am here for that.
It was when we saw Terrifier 2 in the theater, when it gets to that part in the bedroom, there was this dude that was sitting like 2 or 3 rows behind us, and he literally was groaning. He was like, oh,
Mm.
oh, oh. And I'm like, did you not see the first movie? Did you not know what you were
Yeah.
in for? Oh man. Yeah, but Terrifier is interesting, man. Yeah, I can't wait to see what he comes up with for 3. I can't. It's going to be interesting. Any other movies that come to your mind that's been in the last decade or so that
Let's
either has made an impression on you, or a favorite? It could be a favorite movie too.
Well, definitely the Jordan Peele movies like Get Out, Us.
Mm,
I also enjoyed Nope. I think a lot of people didn't because they went in expecting one thing and it wasn't what they were expecting because it was more of a sci-fi adventure movie rather than
mm-hmm,
a horror movie. But he
mm-hmm,
kind of did that to himself with it. Well, I shouldn't say he did it because oftentimes with movie companies, it's a totally different company that produces the trailer. So it's
yeah,
not him producing the trailer, but the trailer kind of misdirected a lot of people to think that it was going to be horror because of the barn scene.
mm-hmm,
But I think it works really well as an adventure sci-fi movie if you know it that
yeah,
way. Like if you like like the way it made me feel watching it was like watching Buckaroo Banzai. Like that type of
mm,
feel where it's not too serious, but there are some serious elements like the whole chimpanzee scene. That was
yes,
creepy. But
yeah, and so well shot too.
Us is the only movie that's given me a nightmare, and it was from the trailer.
Oh,
I saw the trailer for Us, and there's something about doppelgangers that just intensely disturbs me. And so
mm,
I saw the trailer for Us, and the family that they just look so creepy to me. I don't know what it's the subtlety in the makeup that makes them look creepy as the tethered. And
mm-hmm,
in my dream, I was fighting myself, but the other version of myself, hair was wild, in a hospital gown, and it was just really really scary to me. But
wow,
then
okay,
the I guess the social messaging
mm-hmm,
is also super interesting to me with his
mm-hmm.
movies.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. They're very, first of all, they're interesting movies, and they're
Hmm.
multi-layered. They're well they're well done, well
Hmm.
shot. The music, the acting, you got great actors in
Hmm.
these films, and it's just it's an experience. When
Yeah.
we went to go see Nope, I was just so excited because it's like I'm watching a movie that I don't know what's gonna happen. You
Hmm.
know, this is not. an old school franchise is being revived or remade or rebooted or whatever. And Jordan Peele is he's such a horror nerd himself,
Hmm.
and even though it was definitely more like sci-fi adventure, it had some creepy ass moments in
Yes.
it. It really did. I mean, and he said himself, he took a lot of inspiration from a lot of movies, most notably Jaws.
Hmm.
And there are a lot of people that don't think about Jaws as a horror film, at least not nowadays. But that movie scared the shit out of me, man.
Yes.
And I'm still afraid to go in the water because of sharks, because of Jaws.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, bitch.
And it's
So,
spawned a whole like industry. If it wasn't for Jaws, you wouldn't have piranha and orca, even on down to Sharknado. Like you wouldn't have that without Jaws.
that's right. You are so right. That is a great point. There was so many movies that spawned off of Jaws. I mean,
Hmm.
literally, it was the first summer blockbuster, man. I
Yes.
mean, and I still watch that movie like pretty much every year, at least once,
Hmm.
and it's still such a great ass movie. It's good. It is so
Yes.
good. Um,
And I
Shout out
hate
to
that.
Orca.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, no, no. I was saying when you said Orca, that was a fun one too. But what were you gonna say?
Oh, I was just gonna say I hate that there's this whole thing where people want to mistakenly criticize Jordan Peele movies or similar movies, like Ari Aster movies, for being quote woke when horror has always been woke. Like you go
Yes,
back and you watch those watch Night of the Living Dead, watch Dawn of the Dead, watch Day of the Dead. There's things being said
yes,
this whole
yes,
time.
yes, yes. That's true. George Romero. They call him the Godfather of zombie movies. He might be the
Mhm.
Godfather of woke, but
Yeah.
but he did it in a way where, well, number one, it was very good, as
Hmm.
far as the movies, the way he intertwined those messages in the movies, and also for people to sometimes see things that he didn't necessarily put there, but he was just like, well, I'll let you kind of,
Hmm.
make your own decisions on what I
Yeah.
mean or what's being said or what the story is trying to tell you. And same thing with Jordan Peele. I think that,
Hmm.
with his films, he's doing so much at the same time and he's doing it well. There's a good balance
Hmm.
in his movies. And like I said, every time he comes out with a movie, it's like an experience.
Hmm.
You don't know what to expect. And I've enjoyed all of his movies. I mean, I think I agree, Us, that was some creepy stuff, man. I mean,
Hmm.
you had a lot of creepy stuff going on, but you also had home invasion stuff
Yes.
going on, and then you had, the chase, and then of course, you have this whole almost like this zombie apocalypse thing going on too. So
Hmm.
he was really
Yeah.
it's
And with
it's
Get
it's
Out,
amazing.
it's the type of movie that every time you watch it, you notice something else that you didn't notice before.
Right? Yes. Yes. It's so true. It is
And
so true.
somebody else that flies under the radar, Lloyd Kaufman. Like people look at the
Ooh.
Toxic Avenger, they look at the
Hmm.
Classic Nukem High and say, "Oh, haha, it's silly." The man has been telling you about pollution. His
Yes.
movies are about pollution.
Yes. It's
They're
true.
very environmentalist movies.
It is so
He's
true.
making it funny, he's making it horrific, but that's the Trauma also had a movie called, do you remember The Children?
Yes.
When the bus went through the toxic cloud.
Yes.
Been talking
Yes.
about, you know, pollution for 20 years, but no
Yes.
one is calling it woke, but it's extremely woke. It is.
Yeah, that's
And
true,
I'm for
man.
that.
Yeah, yeah. You take care of your environment. Yes,
Hmm.
it's very true. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Man, I mean, I think when you look back at all these movies, all these different filmmakers, one thing that comes to my mind is that it's in talking just about horror though, it's a genre where there's so much room for everybody to have their
Yes.
spot. And I really enjoy that. I mean, we were just talking about The Exorcist. Now we're talking about The Toxic Avenger. We
Hmm.
we talked about Curtains a little bit, like, and all these movies couldn't be further apart from each other. But they all have like their merit, or they have something that speaks to us as viewers or horror fans. And I
Hmm.
think that's special, man. That's why I love talking about horror, man. I really, really do. No
Yeah,
doubt at
to me,
all.
it's one of the most intelligent forms of cinematic artistry, because you're combining so many things, so many elements. You're combining drama and action, sometimes comedy, and then when you get
Hmm.
into the special effects world of it, I mean, that those people are artists, like
Yes.
serious artists.
Yes, they are, man. And I will say, I hope that, especially talking about, special effects, the practical makeup, and all those
Hmm.
guys, um, and ladies, of course. But
Hmm.
I just hope that they can continue to do amazing things, because we got to this point where CGI,
Yeah.
is like, just it's being pushed on so many of these projects. But fortunately, there's a movement
Hmm.
of filmmakers and artists that still want to use practical. I mean, we talked about Terrifier. Damien
Yes.
Leone, he is huge into the practical. He wants everything that can be practical to be practical. And I tip my hat off to him for that, because like when we're watching Carpenter's The Thing, and Rob Bottin, who literally
Hmm.
slept on the set for a year just so he could do all of the work, had to be hospitalized at the end of the shoot because he just wasn't taking care of himself. But the end result, that movie still, we just did a watch party for it the other night. That movie, number one, is still one of my favorite movies ever. But the
Hmm.
practical work in The Thing is unfreaking believable. Amazing stuff that they were able to do.
And no one has done it to this day. Like, you would
Hmm.
think there would be people who grew up seeing that and they would, improve upon it, or replicate it. No, nothing.
I wish I had the if I wish I had the skill,
Hmm.
and the artistry to be able to do that, because I would love to create stuff like that. The stuff that he did, Rick Baker with An American
Yes.
Werewolf, Stan Winston, and doing Predator and Terminator,
Hmm.
and Alien, and all these different stuff, man. It's like these guys they truly were artists, and
Yeah.
we don't have it like that. Or what I want to say is, I know I might misspeak, but we don't have it at that level and that magnitude today. We still
Hmm.
have great artists, but they're not able to always do everything that they can do because of how movies are today.
Yeah.
And
Like,
it's
just
too bad.
recently I saw The Blackening, and I thought the writing was really good. I
Hmm.
would really put it up against, like, at least the beginning of it, against Scream, as far as
Hmm.
the satirical writing.
Hmm.
Where it faltered for me was they kind of copped out on the actual slasher element of it. Like, it's
Wow.
it's cutaways. You see a little bit of blood. If you're gonna do a slasher movie, I need you to call up Tom Savini. That's
Yes.
the go-to guy. You'll get
Yes.
some slash throats. You get limbs. So, like, I want that in there too.
Right, right. Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard a couple good things. So it's worth watching.
Yes, it's worth watching, as long as you go in thinking of it as a comedy. If you want it to be a horror movie, it kind of fails on the horror part, but it works very well as a comedy.
Okay,
And it's
cool.
very specific to African American culture. Like, there's a lot of
Mhm.
jokes in there that, like, there's jokes about spades, like, basically, like that type of humor. Like, if you don't know what that is, you're not going to get the joke.
Right, right, right. Nice. Yeah, it's definitely on my list to see. I've heard some good things about it though. Um, but it is too bad, like you said, if they didn't go all in on the slasher element. One
Because
thing that is certain, horror, the genre and the community and the fans,
hmm
they will keep you going for decades. If your
hmm
movie is good, or if your character stands out, or if you're a director that made some type of impact and you're in the horror genre, your
hmm
career can last for decades, well
oh yeah.
after that particular movie or project.
hmm
When you think of horror conventions, and obviously us as YouTubers are talking about these
hmm
movies, and we're still talking about movies from the damn 70s. You know what I'm
hmm
saying? So it's
And the,
like, so
the
it's too
horror
bad.
host as well. Like, I was so shocked to find out that Elvira was 72 years old.
Right?
Like, talking about aging well. Oh my goodness. But
Right?
again, she still attends horror conventions. She has merchandise. She has created a whole, fandom
Hmm.
around this character, which is awesome.
Yes.
Joe Bob
Yes.
is back. He's been on Shutter for the
Hmm.
last 4 years, and now there's a
Yes.
whole new generation watching, on Friday nights, watching Joe Bob Briggs introduce
Hmm.
movies.
Yes, yes, I love Joe Bob. And when back in the day, I used to well, and I still do, but just hearing him talk about freaking
Hmm.
movies is just
Yeah,
so entertaining.
and he's so brilliant. Like, he knows
Hmm.
so much stuff. Like, it's amazing.
I know, absolutely love him. Oh man. Well, look, I know I've kept you on longer than I said, and but that's what happens when you're just having
Hmm.
fun and you're going down memory lane and stuff too.
Hmm.
So we'll get ready to end it here. But for you guys that are watching, number one, leave us some comments. Let us know what you think about all these things we've been talking about a lot of stuff. So let
Hmm.
us know what you think about some of these movies, the old school movies, and also some of these newer movies. Let us know some of your thoughts on those, and make sure that you go to Lady Shasha's channel. I've got the link in the description. Go support her, subscribe to her. You will not be disappointed. And lastly, anything that's coming up that you're going to be doing that you want to tell people about?
Yes, well, on my channel, I'm going to be doing Summer to Slashers because I just felt like cheering myself up, and that's what always cheers me up is watching a good slasher movie. So I want
Right.
to talk about some classic slasher movies. I want to talk about some newer slasher movies, and I'm going to talk about some slasher movies I found that have been done by LGBTQ directors, as well as
Mhm.
some Black directors as well.
Nice.
And also, Monday nights, I'm on Hood Podcast where we talk about news of the weird, international news of the weird, because every country has a hood. I'm also helping Crystal Connor with the Cabin in the Woods Film Festival. It is a unique experience because it's both an on-site film festival and an online film festival. So if you are unable to join us in Seattle, August 23rd to 26th, you can join us online for the film festival where you will be able to vote on the films. You'll be able to interact with other film um, attendees, and also there will be like quizzes and prizes and all that fun stuff. Make sure you follow Cabin in the Woods Film Fest on Instagram and cabin_fest on what's left of Twitter.
Nice. Very, very cool. And I'll also put those links in the description as well, because obviously I'm happy to be involved with it and hoping to help get the word out. And it does sound really, really cool. I mean, and the fact that there is the in-person and also the online capability for people to be, a part of it, I think that's very, very cool. It's smart.
Hmm.
Because it would, as soon as when you told us about it and you said that, I was like, oh man, that is so smart, because there's so many great things that happen, obviously all over the world, and people want to
Hmm.
attend, but if they're not near that place physically, they're like, well, I can't do anything with that. So this is really cool that you have the online option as well.
Oh yeah, I think
Yeah.
well, Crystal, this is Crystal's baby. This is her idea, and I
Hmm.
think her also being a YouTuber is probably what made her think of the online component, because she
Yeah.
works as a horror author. She's published 13 books, and in the past she has been a judge on a lot of different film festivals. But
Hmm.
she decided this year was her year to have her own film festival in her own way, and
Yeah.
I really love that.
Yeah, me too, man. It's a great idea. Absolutely exciting. I can't wait to be a part of it. Seriously, I can't.
Thank you. I
So,
really appreciate that.
yeah, no, absolutely, man. I mean, that's one cool thing as well. This community that we have, through YouTube and social media and all that type of stuff, YouTubers, content creators, I think it's really cool because you get a chance to not only collaborate with each other and, form relationships, friendships, and
Hmm.
so forth, but you also can have inspiration,
Yes.
and when you see other people doing interesting and amazing things, it's only going to make everyone else better, and it's very, very cool. So shout out to Crystal on that. That's really, really cool. So
Say one thing to anyone that's new to
yeah,
YouTube, if you've just
sure.
started your channel, or if you've been on here for a while and you were starting to feel like how I started earlier when I said that I was feeling a term I would use is insecure about my content.
Hmm.
A great way to redirect yourself, if you've been doing this for a year, you've been doing this for 2 years, go back and watch your first or second video,
Hmm.
and it will remind you how far you've come.
That's a great point. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Oh, man, I remember the first
Oh,
video I did. Oh my god, it was so bad.
Yeah, my
Like,
first the sound is bad.
yeah.
The lighting is horrible.
Oh my God, man. And it's funny because people, myself included, you don't think about all the little details
Mhm,
involved with just being able to do a quote unquote do a video. And my first one, like the my heart was there, what I
mhm,
wanted to talk about, and I knew it had the knowledge, but I just didn't have the the other
mhm.
things to make it viewable. And
Yeah,
so, but you're right, if you look back at that or you think about your beginning of your journey, you can really appreciate where you're at, how far you've come. That's very true. Guys, we hope you enjoyed this conversation. I know I did. It's always a good time to be able to sit back and talk and chat and find out some interesting things. So again, make sure you leave a comment. Check out Lady Shasha's channel. Check out the links in the description, and we will catch you guys later. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this, you are the Night Watch. Peace.